Scalpers get wrecked. Today I just wanted to make another Pokemon video, and we're going to talk about the current tragedy that is befalling the scalpers as they struggle to unload their recently acquired sets of Pokemon to sell on the secondary markets for a few quick bucks of profit. Just to preface this video, I do want to say I've got absolutely no problem with the ethics or morals behind scalping. Most of these guys are just trying to make a few extra bucks for themselves and their families, and I can't have a problem with that. What I do want to criticise about the scalpers though is their actual approach. I don't think it's a very good approach in terms of risk to reward, and I don't think it's sustainable over the long run. Building upon that, we're also going to talk about sort of the fine line between gambling and investing and how it is becoming increasingly blurred. So yeah, we'll get into all that now. Scrolling through Facebook over the last few days, I have noticed that a lot of Pokemon investors are getting their faces ripped off by just a small downturn in the market for recently released Pokemon sets. Taking a step back, this downturn is not actually that bad. I haven't looked too closely at the prices. I've seen just before this video here in Australia a few of the Mega Evolutions Chaos Rising booster boxes seem to be selling for, I think it was around 280 Aussie dollars. And they released only recently. Most people were picking them up for around 320 to 350 Aussie dollars. So, you know, decent enough downturn, but nothing too crazy, at least you wouldn't think. However, scrolling through Facebook and some of these Pokemon groups, you get the feeling that the walls are caving in. And that's really because a lot of these scalpers have positioned themselves to depend, they've overexposed themselves to any failure of a Pokemon product to perform in the short term. And when you think about it, this failure of sets to perform is really an inevitability. Sorry, can't speak. It's a law of the markets that they're going to swing up and down, and no matter how strong a market is, there's still going to be some serious downturns, particularly in smaller, less mature markets like cards. Not only that, you know, if you were to compare cards to small cap stocks like penny stocks and that sort of thing, you know, at least these products can be traded on exchanges and that sort of thing. They're a bit more liquid, keep a bit of a floor on the price. But the secondary Pokemon markets, you know, whilst they're fairly liquid for what they are, can easily become somewhat illiquid. So if you're depending on success of a product in the short term and can't afford any serious downturns, you know, you're just going to get your face ripped off by this market, and if it doesn't happen now, it's going to happen in the future. The other problem with this approach of short-term scalping, this really short-sighted approach to the markets where you're trying to capitalize off every little move, is the sunken sort of opportunity cost of a longer-term investment that could be just sitting on the side, you're not even thinking about it, just accumulating sort of profits in the background. And meanwhile, you're stuck on this modern set that's just sinking and sinking, and you've got all this capital tied up that you know you could have deployed into some older products that are, you know, becoming scarce and ready to sort of start moving up, have sort of formed a bit of a floor, have formed a bottom. So I suppose, for example, I'm not too worried about all these recent Pokemon releases. You know, the Pokemon I am buying is Sword and Shield era and Scarlet and Violet era at the moment. If the prices of these modern sets continue to fall, I'll probably look to pick some up. But what am I buying right now? I'm buying lots of these Magic the Gathering collector boxes that a lot of card stores are just selling out for clearance prices, because they're not the hot new thing like Pokemon. So I'm picking these up. All these sets here I picked up for between $400-$500 Australian dollars, so dirt cheap. And some of these sets have like $50,000 cards in them. So when you're looking at a risk reward profile, something like this looks far more favourable to me than trying to flip a profit of 20, 30, $50 on, say, the new Pokemon Pitch Black ETB. So I think another thing to sort of think about with some of these older and particularly collector items like these, we don't really know, we don't know where the ceiling for these products is. Like in the long run, which is my focus, in 10 to 15 years, who is to say what this is worth? I mean, I can't even guess. I just am confident it'll be worth more as the scarcity of this product grows and time does its thing. However, if we look at some of these modern Pokemon sets, the ceiling can be quite not obvious. Like, there's still volatility, but you're kidding yourself if you think you're going to make 100% gain on the new Pitch Black booster box in a short amount of time. You've got to sort of have your expectations based in reality. So, a lot of people think this is a weaker set, and I would agree. Whether it's true or not, to think that a Pitch Black booster box would appreciate by 100% in 1, 2, 3 years, I think is quite, I want to say, unrealistic. Obviously, it could happen, but also the potential of that product to cut in half, or even more than that, is also certainly a possibility. I don't think anyone would say that that's too unlikely. However, you take this Spider-Man collector's box, you could easily see this, it's not my goal that this doubles in a year, but it could. It's sold off from, I think, highs of $1,500 to, I picked that one up for about 400 Aussie dollars. So the risk to reward profile is just much better if you're looking at sort of these longer term investments and not getting caught up in not being too short-sighted and getting caught up in the daily events of Pokemon and all this crap. And I guess that sort of brings me to a point I wanted to make about the difference between gambling and investing, because it's become an extremely blurry line over the years as gambling starts to manifest itself in different sort of forms to what we're more traditionally used to. So now gambling may manifest itself as sort of leverage trading or leveraged ETFs, or Pokemon scalping, buying Pokemon cards on a credit card with a personal loan, all this sort of stuff that, you can easily delude yourself that it's investing and you're working, whatever. Really, it's just gambling in a different sort of form to what we're used to, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. Here in Australia, gambling is it's a part of everything. Like, it's a deep part of the culture, and I think a lot of the world hasn't realised just how dangerous this sort of new trend is, because I think it's probably worse here than in the rest of the world. I suppose, to give an idea of what the gambling culture looks like in Australia for anyone who hasn't been around, or anyone who is from outside of the country, come Thursday night, we have Australian rules football. We just call it footy here. Massive sport in our country. And come 7 o'clock, 7:30, talk of a lot of most households seems to be, who are they going to put in their footy multi for the night. And this continues on all weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. People love watching the game, and they love betting on it as well. You go out for tea here in Australia. We have what's called pokey machines, so like your slot machines that you see in Vegas, but we just have them in the bars and the restaurants. And it's quite common to go out for tea with your mates or lunch with your mates, and everyone rolls into we call it the pokies, chuck in 50, 100. I've seen people chuck in thousands in one night. So all of that to say that we're becoming sort of desensitized to gambling, and it's sort of become such a normal part of our lives that we don't really give it a second thought, I don't think. And really, I think if we step back and have a look at what's going on with the scalping in Pokemon, we could just say that that's another manifestation of gambling. Maybe not for everyone, but if you're taking out credit card debt and personal loans and that sort of thing to try and flip Pokemon cards, that's not investing. You're deluding yourself if you think it is. So I suppose the point of all this is to say you've got to be careful when you're trying to, because what's the goal here? Like, ultimately we're all trying to achieve the same thing. We're trying to accumulate more wealth for ourselves, our families, whatever the reason is. Not many of us are doing this just for the fun of it. We are trying to make a better lives for ourselves. So we work hard throughout the week. Some of us on the weekends to earn this money that we put into cards. So we want to make sure that we're not doing anything stupid, and we're not harming ourselves or our families when we're making these decisions. So with all that said, the scalper approach is already starting to show cracks from just a small downturn in the market. All these people getting their faces ripped off, and meanwhile, those of us who are investing in the longer term, who are not looking at, who are not sort of sucked into all the chaos of the day-to-days of the market, we're all sitting back here and everything's fine. Interestingly, I like to check my collector app every now and then just to see sort of the general direction of my card investments. And interestingly, over the last few weeks, it's just steadily been increasing up thanks to appreciations largely in some of my Magic Collector's positions. But all my other mates that are involved at all in cards and who have been sucked into the shorter term scalping side of it, they're all sort of telling me how they're down. And to me, that just seems crazy, because I'm sitting back here watching my position just steadily grow, and these people are down. It varies, but some people are down quite bad. And since they've got a short-term outlook and they've sort of planned on short-term profits, it affects their lives. That's another thing I think to consider when you're deciding how you want to attack this market. If you're positioned too much to the short-term swings of things, the short-term going-ons, it's going to really affect your day-to-day life. You don't really want to have to be stressing about your cards performing. Like, really, you should be able to just live your life and not have to think about what your investments are doing, because I suppose that's how you know that you've got an investment approach rather than a gambling approach as well. If you can live your day-to-day life without really thinking about what your investments are doing, fair chance you've got your risk parameters in check. Whereas, if if you're gambling and scalping, you're going to be pretty stressed about the day-to-day going-ons in the market. So that's another thing to keep in mind. What else have I got for you? Is I suppose I've also been thinking about the way markets sort of punish, I suppose, ordinary people. I've noticed over my years in participating in different markets that the herd sort of has a tendency to get, I guess, slaughtered by the market. And when all is said and done, like when you take it over a long enough time frame, most people don't really do too well in any given market. And again, I think, well, from what I've experienced, this is really a result of this short-sightedness. People expecting too much from the short term and sort of depending on short-term gains when there's just an inherent volatility to the market that has proved itself to be that present time and time again. Like people should know by now that the markets are going to have downturns, and people just can't withstand it if they're positioned too much to the immediate performance of the market, if they overexpose themselves. So I think it's important to build a strategy where you can afford to have your investments not perform immediately. And really that's probably a good way to know whether you're a gambler or an investor. Anyway, we'll leave it there. I just wanted to try and put this in perspective, because if you're looking through Facebook, it feels like or Pokemon Facebook, it feels like the world's ending. But if you take a step back, nothing's changed. Everything's fine. Cards are doing what they've always done, trending up over time, and there's some fluctuations between that move from A to B, but ultimately the direction is up over the long term. So I'll just say that it's a good time to reconsider your strategy because nothing's changed in the market, and I don't think anything will change. So I might leave it there.